Let's move to game stacks. And game stacks are when we have players from both sides of the same game. So if the Bills are playing the Dolphins, and players from both the Bills and the Dolphins make a perfect lineup, that's classified as being a game stack. And this is where we get to the big theme of our perfect lineups from 2019. We want to target players in games that are projected to be close and high scoring. I think a good model of this in your brain is that Saints 49ers game during the regular season where it was back and forth. It was a 45-point total, really tight spread, and that game shot out. And there were a lot of guys from that game in the perfect lineup. So that's going to be the big focus for us throughout this podcast, is looking for tight, close games to stack. Overall this year, there were 20 total game stacks in perfect lineups, and that's a really big number. We should emphasize that in general, again, you want to stack games. That cannot be undersold. But specifically, we want to stack those games that can be close and high scoring. Of the 20 game stacks in perfect lineups, 13 came from games with a spread of less than 5 points. That is 65% of all game stacks. And the way to compare the importance of that is by looking at what percentage of actual NFL games had a spread that tight. And of all the NFL games from 2019, only 50% had a spread of less than 5 points. That is a 15 percentage point gap telling us to stack games with a tight spread. And that is a impactful number for sure. And this makes sense intuitively because games typically don't shoot out unless both sides are scoring points. And to get a game stack, both sides need to score points. This is very logical, but the data does bear it out. So you want to target games that will feature points on both sides with the potential to shoot out. And because bookmakers are very good at what they do because there's a lot of money on the line, it means we want to target close games. That is very logical, but the extent to which it was true in the data should stand out. Now, the emphasis on higher scoring games is also logical, but it is worth emphasizing once again because 65% of game stacks came from games with a total of 45 or higher. That is compared to 56% of all games, so a gap of 9 percentage points there. So we've seen that 65% of game stacks came from games with a total of 45 or higher. 65% came from a game with a spread of less than 5 points. If we combine that together, where the total is at least 45 and the spread is less than 5 points, we're left with 40% of our game stacks checking both boxes. Only 30% of all games across the NFL this year were in both zones. So you want to stack high-scoring, tight games. And you also want to actively avoid bad game environments. That's the other big key from these perfect lineups for this year, is you want to avoid games with either a really high spread or a really low total. Only one of our 20 game stacks this year came from a game with a spread of 10 or more points. So both points stand. We want to target good game environments and we want to avoid the bad ones. And again, that's going to be a big key for us throughout the day. And that is the biggest thing for game stacks. As far as the positions that go well together, it's pretty logical. The top game stacking combo was one team's running back paired with the opposing team's wide receiver. And that makes sense because if one team is ahead, they can run the football. That increases volume for the running back. That also means the other team is trailing will be more inclined to throw. So it increases the volume for both the running back and the wide receiver if the game goes that way. So that makes a whole lot of sense. One stack that was a little bit surprising, potentially, was two running backs from opposing teams, because in general, that kind of goes counter to what we were just talking about, where both the running back and wide receiver benefit from volume. That's not the case, but there were 4 instances here where two running backs from opposing teams were paired together, but I think that it serves a different point. We just want exposure to tight, high-scoring games because there will be points scored. We don't know how those points be distributed. So it could be the running back receiver combo we discussed, or it could be the running back with a tight end, or running back with a running back. So give a slight preference to scenarios that pair well together, like a running back paired with an opposing team's wide receiver. But just in general, we should be looking to stack games up regardless of the positional alignment. So recap here of game stacks, we do want to target high-scoring tight games. We want to avoid really bad game environments with a total under 40 or with a high spread. And we do want to give a slight preference to games that would benefit, or to players that would benefit, if games play out a certain way, like running back with a wide receiver, but just in general, we do want to stack games up. So the overall point here is we want overall stacks, we want game stacks, we want stacks on stacks on stacks if you want to earn stacks in NFL DFS.